program, right? Do you know his name?
I don't know his name now.
He was actually a speedrunner.
Oh, okay.
His name's Mike Damiani.
Hmm.
He's well known. You know, he did the game trailers thing. He did that. He started off as a speedrunner, but it was found out. This is right before I started speedrunning Zelda that he had spliced all of his runs.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of a it was a really somewhat awkward moment for me because I knew who he was, um, and he sent me information aspect. He's like, if this was anybody else that but me, you'd probably be very you'd get a lot of backlash from the runner. But I mean, he knew plenty about the game. But yeah, he was one of the people I researched in that, and so it was a very interesting conversation to have. People didn't realize to what the concept was. Like some people did, and then I was never really that forthcoming on it until the episode came out, and it was a kind of a big deal because most people in the speedrunning community knew. His legend has grown more as someone who spliced his videos uh, than what he was back then, which was a really well known and respected speedrunner. So.
That's interesting. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask a little bit about that. So, let me get it straight, though. He asked you, he was already known to be a splicer when he asked you about the bomb thing.
Yes. Well, in the speedrun community, he had already retired, so to speak, as a speedrunner. Got his job onto game trailers, and started. He did a whole. I don't know what episode that was. It was like season 2 or 3. I mean, he'd done tons of videos already, and I don't know what provoked him to do Zelda. Which I mean, he should have. I think he knew more about it than he would let on in his video. I'm sure he knew more about speedrunning,
Okay.
especially that game. But he was doing his work as a content creator rather than a speedrunner. So I understand that. It was just a very odd situation for me, and people asked me about it and that kind of thing, and I didn't really say much. I mean, what I'm telling you is what I end up telling everybody else if they asked.
Mhm.
I never really went out of my way to say, "Oh, hey, this guy contacted me. What should I tell him?" When people,
Okay.
it never really happened. So I'm not that kind of person to do that. But it was a really interesting experience to get asked a question from someone who used, I don't know, I can't speak for him or anything, who was known as a well-respected speedrunner who moved on to something else and then found out that what he did in speedrunning was in many cases falsified. And
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, it was a very interesting situation. But I guess people got a lot more information on Zelda, and some people found out who I was through that particular episode, and so no big. That might be part of why I helped get me partnered. That was around that period when I got partnered a few years ago. So
It's interesting. Like these days, splicing is becoming more of a kind of a hot topic in the speedrunning scene. As more people coming out that they're
mhm,
finding splicers and stuff.
mhm.
Do you think like it's a big problem? Would you say it's a big problem in speedrunning about splicing and how it's kind of getting easier to do?
Well, it goes. Well, for me, it's no big deal because I don't have any interest in doing that. It The desire to splice comes through competitiveness with other people.
Hmm.
Me, I'm as much about uh, getting better as a speedrunner myself. I'd rather go against my own times and not worry about what others are doing. So I don't have that urge to splice. I could splice an old run. That won't make me feel any better because I don't actually beat my own run. I
Yeah,
cheated
yeah.
to do it. But having this desire to be in front of anybody else is what causes that. That's just the nature of competitiveness in general. Anything that's competitive is going to have its form of cheating. Um,
Sure.
I guess best advice is maybe not put the best speedrunners on pedestals so that people aren't encouraged to try to be that.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess because there's not really there's no prize except that, right? Just to be there's not like everyone's getting millions of dollars for being in the
Yeah,
first place in whatever.
it's notoriety for sure. I mean, there is the chance. I mean, there is the dream of becoming the best speedrunner in the game, getting partnered, doing it for a living, that kind of thing. But that's really hard to do.
Hmm.
There's very few people, especially in the speedrunning world, that solely speedruns and makes a living
Oh
off
yeah.
of it.
That's you can count on one hand for sure. I believe. So about on the competition front, Lack Attack now has
Mhm.
a firm grip on the first place and all in Zelda.
And it rankles me to no end, but yes.
Yeah. So what do you, is that something? What do you feel about that? Does that motivate you to say, man, I really want to get that back, or you kind of I'm happy for him, or how do you feel?
Oh, sure. I would much prefer to have the record over him, but I mean, despite me saying, I'm very competitive toward myself, I'm also very competitive in general anyway. Um, so I'd much rather have the record, but but I've pushed myself way beyond where I would be comfortable going, and I've burned out, and I've stopped playing the game for longer stretches than what I normally had, uh, just competing with myself.
Mm.
So for me, I need to go back to try to beat my own time. I can't beat his time without beating my own time. So that's the first thing on my agenda. I think when I picked it up recently again, just there's a tournament planned for it, and actually Lax asked me to pick it back up because I hadn't done any. The last time I actually played the game non-randomizer was for Chase for the Record, where I PB'd.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we did. No, we did another Chase for the Record a month or so after that. So it was, it's been like 6 months, and that's probably the longest I've gone without actually speedrunning Zelda. So, I beat myself first, beat him later. Yeah. I feel like I can beat that time. Lack would be one of the first to say he thinks I can beat his time. We've actually talked about this at GDQs. He's wondering why I haven't beaten his time, but I just need to maybe start losing some old. I actually talked to him about this the other day. I need to lose some of my old bad habits. I mean, I come from a world that I speedrun Zelda differently than anybody else that currently speedruns it because I'm the only one that speedrun it before screen scrolling was a thing.
Mm.
Um, it's just I put thousands of hours into it before people found new stuff, and so it's hard. It's a hard habit to break. I'm in a very unique situation where um, it's harder for me to dump some stuff to pick up new stuff. Well, people just coming into it, it's much easier to learn how to play the game and learn how to speedrun it than what I did getting into it.
Yeah, you have so many thousands and thousands of hours of doing it one way. The change is a big deal for you for sure.
Yeah, it's much harder for me to change than other people, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, you do have 19 runs at GDQs if my count is correct. Do you have any kind of most memorable run from any of the GDQs you've been at?
Uh, I think I'm at 21. That's my count. I include JRDQ though, but
Oh,
I
sure.
think I'm
Yeah.
at 21. Yeah. The most memorable one. Man, it's a positive or negative.
Oh, yeah, let's go both then. If you have a negative one.
Well, negative only because I died in the first stage of Tetris Attack in the four-way race.
Yeah.
Still almost took second in that. That was I turned that around fine. A lot of people really liked and some people really hated my Bubble Bobble co-op with Metasigma. Um,
I remember that one.
yeah, that one's a pretty good one in retrospect. I mean, I could tell you, I remember all of them. The first two SUDQs are a little bit fuzzier. Oh, uh, 4-bit Atari Rygar. That was a fun one. We had one where the sprites were just completely gone. All it was hitboxes on the Rygar cart that I put in when I was going to race Fiesel it. That and I do have a picture of it somewhere, but it just showed hitboxes basically, and it was Atari Rygar. And unfortunately, if I would have ran it if it was just me doing it, but it was a race, so we had to fix it. But that was a fun moment. Most of the SGDQ stuff, and I think I said this in my Tetris Attack interview afterward. A lot of the like personal memories come from outside the actual uh, stream room, stuff that goes on outside. The relationships you forge and that kind of thing. The actual runs are in a lot of ways business.